In this video, I wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive into the nature of the coursework and really anything in particular that you're doing. Whatever you're creating, whether it's writing a discussion post, doing a video blog, or baking a pie, there are really two overarching aspects of what you're creating. There is form and there is content. And so I want to put into your mind what those two things mean. Now, when we get into form, we're really looking at those specific instructions that I have for, let's talk about the video blog, for example. When we hear form, we also hear the word format, and the format is a certain way of doing something that makes it appear or look a certain way. In the case of the video blogs, we want to have an aesthetic. That means the way that it looks. How does it look? Those technical filming requirements really are part of that form. The lighting, the framing, the angle, the sound, all those things I go over again and again and again. Those create this structure. It creates I call it a very professional platform for conveying your ideas, because we could all do video blogs in the same way. We're doing them in landscape. Boom, check that box. The lighting is good. And again, every time I do a video, I try to role model what I think is really good video production. In this particular case, I've moved myself off to the side a bit so that I can put this little screen here with the information on it. But the form is really how it looks, how it appears. If it is a pie, for example, what's the color? I watch a lot of those baking shows. It's so crazy. I love competition shows. The pie has a certain look. The crust is a certain color. It's neatly done around the edges. There may be some design on it. There might be some, if it's an apple pie, some cuts in the top of it, and you can see some of the apples. That is all form. But if you take a bite of that apple pie and it doesn't taste so good, it doesn't matter how good that it looks. So now I want to talk about content. Now, content is like the apple pie, how it tastes. The texture of the pie on your mouth, on your palate, and your taste buds, the sweetness, the spices, all that. But let's look at something like a discussion post. What is the message that you're trying to convey? Because it's not about you like answering a question. A lot of times people answer the question, but that's not it. The prompt is kind of get you going on it, and then you state it as if the question was never answered. I do a lot of commercial work. I do a lot of I do some testimonial things or those kind of things. And usually in the audition process on Zoom, they will give you a question. They'll ask you a question. Then you turn it into a statement as if the question was never asked, because they're going to remove their voice from the audition. So if I asked a question, for example, what is the most frustrating experience you have about understanding human behavior? Some people would immediately start to answer the question without rephrasing, the prompt or making sure that it's clear what you're talking about, but you don't want to answer the question. The content is the ideas, the richness of the ideas, the integration of your experience of what you've read and learned, your knowledge base, what you've observed in other people. That's really synthesizing all those ideas and bringing it together and writing solid statements. It's about communication. Communication, if it's not done if you're not taking efforts and thinking about your communication, it could miscommunicate what you're trying to say or communicate nothing at all. So you really want to know, what are you trying to communicate? For this particular video, I want to communicate to you the importance of both form and content together to create something that is meaningful. Even if it's only, you see it as only 5 sentences, I see it as a process for really developing your ability to harness content and form at the same time. There are many people where the form is terrific, but there's no content. They're not saying anything. There's a lot of people who have a lot to say, a lot of ideas, but the way in which they present those ideas is just not coming through. It's got to be relevant to the subject matter. It's got to be relevant to the audience. Remember who your audience is. In this particular case, your audience is your fellow classmates who will be reading your posts, who will be extracting really strong sentences as noteworthy quotes. So these two coming together, form and content, really is the basis of creating something that's both meaningful and something that you can feel proud of and say, that's what I wrote, that's who I am. And so if you're rushing through everything, which people do, they rush, you're going to have a really sloppy products. You really are. So take the time to create the content and so that and wrap it in that form. So you're doing both at the same time. I hope that makes sense. It's something that I work on every day in whatever I'm creating. Is I know, and a lot of, sometimes I skew more on the form side and I'm like, oh, this doesn't mean anything. Bring the content up. And sometimes the content is so strong, I'm like, how do I encapsulate this in a form? I've given you a form, so you don't even really have to think about it. You have to really just follow the instructions. If I said just do a video blog, here's the prompt, you would see so many different ways of presenting that in form, and a lot of it is going to be counterproductive to the message, you understand? So I really like the first week of class to focus on understanding the structural aspects of the assignment so that you can delve more in to the content and really put those two together. So that is my content and form mini lecture that I've been trying to do for a while, and I'm glad I finally got to do it because I think it's super important and it's super helpful as we move through this semester.